Namaskar, you're with DD India and this is Midday Prime, a midday roundup of the latest from India and the world and from the world of business and sports as well. Well, the fourth round of the National Sero Survey suggests that India has 67% seropositivity. Now, we'll look at the implications of this, and in other news, we'll get a view from an expert on whether the erratic and excessive rain patterns are being caused by climate change. But first, the big news at this hour. Vaccination coverage across the country surpasses 41.54 crores. The recovery rate stands at 97.36%, with 36,977 patients recovering during the last 24 hours. The ICMR conducts a nationwide serological survey and says two-thirds of India have COVID antibodies and 40 crore are still at risk. Monsoons fully active in Mumbai. Rain seen in many areas this morning. The India Meteorological Department issues a red alert of heavy rain for 5 districts of Maharashtra, and orange alert issued for Mumbai for the next 3 days. BJP slams the opposition for playing politics over COVID pandemic and says that no state or union territory had sent any data regarding deaths, specifically because of the shortage of oxygen. Also said that health is a state and union territory subject and the centre just collects the data sent by them. The External Affairs Minister Dr. S Jaishankar scheduled to co-chair virtually the 11th ministerial meeting of the Mekong-Ganga Cooperation with his Cambodian counterpart today. The meeting to be attended by foreign ministers of the member nations of this initiative. The festival of Eid-ul-Azha is being celebrated today, and no mass congregations in Eidgahs and grand mosques in view of the pandemic. The President, Vice President and Prime Minister have greeted fellow citizens on the festival. The first competition of the Tokyo Olympics has begun with softball. Baseball and football matches also begin today, and the games will officially begin from July the 23rd. India beats Sri Lanka in the second ODI by 3 wickets. The victory is earned through character and poise shown by the players throughout the match after the top order had collapsed early during the chase. Deepak Chahar wins his first ODI man of the match. So let's begin with our lead story. Well, COVID continues to be the lead story. Let's take a look at COVID-19 situation from across the country. 41.54 crore vaccine doses have been administered so far under the nationwide vaccination drive. The recovery rate stands at 97.36%. Nearly 37,000 patients have recovered during the last 24 hours. A total of 3,390,687 people recovered across the country so far, and over 42,000 new cases were reported in the last 24 hours. India's active caseload today stands at 4,07,170, and the active cases are now just 1.30% of the total positive cases. So with substantially ramped up testing capacity across the country, a total of 18,52,140 tests were conducted in the last 24 hours across the country. Cumulatively, India has conducted over 44.91 crore tests so far. And the weekly positivity rate is currently at 2.09%, and the daily positivity rate stands at 2.27%. The daily positivity rate has remained less than 3% for 30 consecutive days. The vaccination drive has been ramped up, as we said, throughout the availability of the vaccines too, and this is it's available across states and union territories for enable better planning by them and streamlining in the vaccine supply chain. As part of this nationwide vaccination drive, the government has been supporting the states and union territories by providing them COVID vaccines free of cost. More than 43.25 crore vaccine doses have been provided to the states and union territories so far through all sources, and a further 53,38,210 doses are in the pipeline. And of this, well, the total consumption, which includes wastage, is 40 crore 36 lakh 44,231 doses. So more than 2.88 crore, or actually the total figure is 2 crore 88 lakh 73,099 COVID vaccine doses are still available with the states and union territories and the private hospitals to be administered. Plenty in supply there. Well, up to 2/3 of India's population above the age of 6 have already been infected with the coronavirus. Now, this is according to the latest nationwide serological survey conducted by the Indian Council of Medical Research. About 40 crore people are left who are susceptible to the virus. The Sero survey, the fourth such exercise, was conducted in June and July after the second wave had begun to subside. The results of the latest Sero survey mark a huge jump in the prevalence of the infection among the population from the previous such exercises carried out in the same districts. And the first survey had in fact showed less than 1%, and the second varied across the country, with some places showing up to 10%, others showing much less. Now, the third in February 2021 showed 28 crore people had been exposed, and the fourth now is a significant jump up. So let's take a look at the findings of the fourth such exercise. So as we can see, here it is, the fourth round of the National Sero Survey. It says that the overall sero prevalence is 67.6% in the entire population. So that is quite significant. Let's look at the sample specifications, and the sample specifications seem to suggest that the size of the sample was 28,975 individuals, both adults and children, and 7,252 healthcare workers were also included. So the spread has been over the same 70 districts of the country as in the first three surveys. Now, so what we are talking about is that these are the same districts as we said in the earlier three rounds, and 62.2% of adults had not been vaccinated as per of that sample size, and 24.8% of the adults were vaccinated with a single dose, and 13% of this sample size were fully vaccinated. So what were the findings? The findings are quite nice. As we can see, 2/3 of the general population had SARS-CoV-2 antibodies. 1/3 of the population does not have antibodies. More than half of children 6 to 17 years are seropositive. Seroprevalence is similar both in the urban areas as well as in the rural areas. 85% of healthcare workers have antibodies, and 90% of healthcare workers have been vaccinated. And the state-led surveys now, this is important, the state-led surveys will inform of state-level action and their implications. But what are the implications of this Sero survey? The implications are that about 40 crore people are still vulnerable, and states, districts, areas without antibodies are at higher risk. Children can handle this virus much better than adults. So that is one of the important things. Also, a ray of hope, but there's no room for complacency, because what does the ICMR suggest? Let's take a look at some of the suggestions given by the ICMR. Non-essential travel must be discouraged, is what they say. The travel should be permitted only if you're fully vaccinated. Also, public, societal, religious gatherings, all these should be avoided. There's no need to have, another wave coming because of excessive gatherings. And if considering opening of schools, well, start with the primary schools, because the youngest children, they seem to be, better equipped to handle this virus. Moving on then to our next story. So in Assam, as many as 5 districts have been declared as total containment zones owing to their high coronavirus disease positivity rate. The State Disaster Management Authority stated that these districts include Jorhat, Golaghat, Sonitpur, Biswanath and Lakhimpur. Their complete curfew is in these districts was imposed yesterday, 5 a.m. and it will continue till orders are given. And meanwhile, 27 districts have been marked as showing improvement in the declining positivity rate. So according to this notification, regions with moderate and declining positivity rates have been permitted certain curfew relaxations. So let's talk to Mridu Smita now about the situation. Well, Mridu Smita, the situation, as we know, according to the National Sero Survey, is 67% of the population. But the concerns are in the northeast because, you know, the second wave is sort of delayed over there, and it's still affecting much of the northeast. So, of course, measures have been put in place. But, you know, give us an overview of the situation in Assam.
Yes, as you have already mentioned, there are a few districts where the lockdown is still there, and especially like last week it was 7 districts, and in fact because 2 of the districts were showing improvement, so the timing of the curfew has been changed, like from 1 p.m. to 5 a.m. in the morning.
Yes.
And that districts are Morigao and Gwalpara. So these 2 districts were under lockdown last week, but now there is a little bit of relaxation. And if we talk about other districts of the state of Assam, there are a little bit of improvement. However, positive the cases of COVID-19 are being there. And talking about Kamrup Metro, there currently it is the highest number of cases that are being detected, and
yes,
according to the NRHM report, on 20th July, it was 237 cases were reported, and 10 number of deaths were reported from entire Assam yesterday. So the positivity rate is also under 2, as it is yesterday it was 1.18%. So in that case, we can see that there is a little bit of improvement. However, we cannot take it lightly, and as there is always
yes,
thing that maybe there will be more infection, and it might lead to another third wave of the COVID-19 situation, and where the other parts of the country has been undergoing.
yes,
And like in other states also of Northeast, the thing is like that the state governments are taking every precautions so that no further cases are detected, and lockdown has been imposed in various places in the other northeastern states as well, like Manipur, and a few districts where the number of cases have reported. And yes, in Assam, inter-district traveling has also been stopped, and it has still not been open for public. Only essential items for essential items and essential duties only the people can travel from other districts. And yes, in Guwahati, that timing of the curfew is from 5 p.m. till 5 a.m. in the morning. And yes, people are taking every precautionary measures so that no number of cases are come up again. Mark.
Okay, thanks very much, Mridu Smita, for that comprehensive input. Now moving on then to our next story, which is our developing story. Heavy rains lashed parts of Mumbai, Thane and Navi Mumbai since early morning today, leading to massive waterlogging and vehicular traffic across several locations in the city and suburbs having great difficulty. Officials said that as per the latest radar observations from Mumbai, the winds in lower level, they are westerly and they have been strengthened as well. And these winds will ensure moisture from the Arabian Sea over the city and adjoining areas required for sustaining the rainfall activity. The IMD Mumbai says that the city is reporting this downpour because there are favorable favorable situation in this place. The situation is there, and it added that a port and fishermen warning this will also be in place. So Mumbai will continue to experience generally cloudy sky with heavy rain today. And in Delhi, well, the India Meteorological Department has said that moderate rain is likely to continue during the next 24 hours. The Met Department has predicted light to moderate rainfall instead of heavy rainfall in some parts of the capital till Thursday. Meanwhile, moderate and moderate to severe thunderstorms, they are also carrying lightning. These are likely in isolated places. This is over Uttar Pradesh, Bihar and Madhya Pradesh, and this is a forecast for the next 24 hours. The IMD has issued a yellow alert for the national capital. So we can see the heavy rain that we can see here, heavy rain that is lashing parts of Mumbai and had lashed parts of Delhi over the last few days. Today seems to be a little less of a problem in Delhi, but one never knows, because the rains have been consistent, they've been heavy, and they have been intense. Shorter periods of time with very heavy downpours causing severe traffic congestion in various places. Also, difficulty because of water logging, and the drainage system has been put to the test in both the major cities of our country. Mumbai, of course, has this kind of a problem every year, but Delhi, of course, does face it sometimes, but not to this kind of extent. We are going to be joined by Sharma, I'm told. Sharma is joining us from Mumbai with an update. Sharma, so the situation is not looking that good. The forecast, continues to be for heavy rains in Mumbai, and there's an orange alert, and also, similar alerts in different parts of Maharashtra. So, put it into context for us in terms of what's actually happening, how are people dealing with the excessive rainfall?
We are seeing that Mumbai has once again started receiving incessant rainfall, and this has started since today morning. After Saturday, we did see that entire Saturday and till Sunday morning, Mumbai has been lashed with heavy rainfall, because of which a lot of issues had been faced by the people over here. But since today, what we are witnessing has been incessant rainfall. But for now, till now, we are seeing that there has been no issue of waterlogging. And apart from that, we are also seeing that the train services are up and running. The areas adjoining Mumbai, which is Thane, Navi Mumbai, Palghar, they have been receiving incessant rainfall, and their waterlogging issues have been witnessed and been reported, and people have been facing a lot of trouble. The main areas which has been given a red alert are the ones which is on the Konkan coast, Ratnagiri, Raigad, and apart from that, the Pune, Kolhapur and Satara area. These districts have been given a red alert. Rightly so, we are seeing Kolhapur is witnessing heavy rainfall and continuous rainfall, because of which the water level is rising above the danger mark in Panchganga river, and we did see last time also, because of Panchganga river, there was flooding in the Kolhapur city. So the entire district administration is on alert, and the people living alongside of this river has also been alerted. We are also seeing that the lakes which supply water to Mumbai, so Vihar and Tulsi lakes have been overflowing. So that is a good news. But Tansa Lake is about to overflow, and once this happens, the doors of the dams would be opened. That would be a problem for the villages which are located on the banks of the river. So the people have also been told to be on alert, and if need arises, the administration, including the SDRF and other administration, they would be taking people out from those places and shifting them to a safer place. Mark?
Yeah, we leave it there. Thank you very much, Sharma Mishra, for those inputs. Moving on then to next story. Well, it is the same story, in fact. From devastating floods to destructive wildfires, the impact of accelerating climate change is increasingly being seen across the world. Considering all this, the current times of COVID pandemic as well, the US climate envoy, John Kerry, has asserted that the world could not wait for the pandemic to end before dealing with climate change. He was speaking at the Royal Botanic Gardens in Kew, which is in southwest London, and he said that suffering from the coronavirus would be magnified if the nations do not tackle climate warming as well, climate warming, which is a significant warning as well. And he added that the United Nations Climate Conference, COP26, must be a pivotal moment in efforts to tackle climate change, and that the world had a small window to solve this climate crisis. The UK will host the summit in Glasgow, which will happen in November.
We don't have the luxury of waiting until COVID is vanquished to take up the climate challenge. Because the fundamental truth of the Paris Agreement is that even if every country fulfilled its initial promises, and many are falling short, even if everyone did what they said they would do in Paris, the temperature of this planet will still rise by upwards of 2.5 or 3 degrees centigrade. We're already seeing dramatic consequences with 1.2 degrees. Imagine the doubling. To contemplate doubling that is to invite catastrophe. I'm not an exaggerator, I'm not an alarmist, but I do believe in science. That makes this the decisive decade. And it makes 2021 a decisive year. And most of all, it must make COP26 in Glasgow this year a pivotal moment for the world to come together to meet and master the climate challenge.
So let's bring in the scientists then and try and understand about the gravity of the situation here. We have with us Professor PK Joshi, who's the Department of Environmental Sciences from Jawaharlal Nehru University, joining us on Zoom. How serious is the concern? Because we are seeing excessive rainfall. We are not sure whether this rainfall is normal or abnormal, and how, I'm talking about India, how it would actually be connected with climate change.
Thanks a lot for having me here. If you look at the fundamental science of precipitation, so we understand that the moisture which is there in air, it changes depending on the temperature. For example, science tells us if you heat the air by 1 degree Celsius, it can approximately increase the 7% more water in the atmosphere. So with these kind of things, we do understand the big storms with large amount of rainfalls are limited by the amount of water vapors in the atmosphere. So as we increase water vapors in the atmosphere as a result of rise in temperature, we actually increase the amount of rainfall in these extreme precipitation events. And what you see here, the precipitation which is taking place currently, this is one of a very complicated phenomena. A thunderstorm is essentially a tower of upward moving of winds that feed themselves by sucking the warm air from the nearby environment. So that way, we get to understand this climate change and increase in atmospheric temperature. It is somewhere influencing the precipitation patterns.
Indeed, but the concerns are, to what extent are we able to, to mitigate this, to try and reduce the amount of carbon emissions? This doesn't seem to be happening, even if countries are, trying their best. The concern now is also of space travel. Is that there's going to be a race for space, and are we, bombarding that part of the atmosphere just outside, between space and our atmosphere with a lot of carbon dioxide? How is this all going to impact climate change?
As of now, we don't have a very clear-cut indicators of this kind of movement in the space. But certainly, looking at the way in the past trends, we get to see the way fuel has been used in transportation sector, that has actually given an increment to the rise in greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, and then subsequently in rise in temperature. So use of if these fuels are not cleaner, so they are certainly going to add to greenhouse gas in the atmosphere and add to a rise in temperature and the entire phenomena of climate change. So we need to take some short-term steps, some long-term steps, which are generally called as mitigation and adaptation. So at country level and at international level, such kind of initiatives are very mandatory, and we actually can't wait for variations which will guide us at the later stages. We need to take very strong steps towards that.
Indeed, and the fact that this is a clear and present danger is, Dr. Joshi, is evident from the fact that we are seeing climate patterns that we were not expecting. It was actually predicted in 2001 itself. and that, you know, these kind of things would happen by around this time, but we were not expecting it to happen so fast. But we are seeing, like Lytton in Canada with 49 degrees centigrade, wildfires in the temperate zones of the world. These are definitely unusual signs, and happening at a time when COVID, you know, COVID too was at one point of time also attributed to climate change, the jumping of a virus from the animal world into the human world. Of course, there are other theories now, but the point is that everything is connected to climate change, and at the end of the day, you know, we were planning things for the future, but those plans have to be, you know, have to be brought forward.
Well, you know, to me, and it is very clear that science was always able to communicate to us the kind of things which we are experiencing today.
Okay.
If you look at the, you know, rise in temperature which was taking place since 1880s to till 1980s, it was somewhere at the order of 0.08 degrees Celsius per decade.
Okay.
But post 1980s, we got to understand it is rising at the rate of 0.18 degrees Celsius per decade, which is actually the twice the rate which was there in the historic period. And
okay.
people had a very clear-cut understanding about this rise in temperature and the kind of hazards which we are actually looking around. You know, it was very clearly communicated that there is a very likely increase in weather and climate hazards, like this precipitation which we get to see, heat waves which we are seeing, and a result of that, the way you talked about forest fire and even other processes like drought. The second thing which is there is, you know, these hazards, which are induced by climate change, they are increasing the vulnerability of the communities, particularly through ecosystem degradation, reduction in water, even food availability. So these changes are somewhat very prominent, and science had always communicated these kind of, you know, challenges which we are now actually experiencing. So if you look at literature which has come in past 2-3 decades, it is very loudly communicating about that. So we should always look at these scientific indicators as a clear-cut, you know, message about the, you know, hazards which are there. Second thing, coming to COVID, yes, there are some school of thoughts which are basically, which might be linking it to climate change, but still, you know, we, in a much granular manner, we know it very clearly that it is a mistreatment of nature, specifically biodiversity, the way we interact with the biological resources, or, you know, these forest areas and all. There is a parallel school of thought which talks about, you know, like the former president of US used to call it Chinese virus. Yeah. So that again stands somewhere debatable. But as an ecologist, as an environmentalist, I see that as a very clear-cut linkage of Anthropocene or interaction of human beings with the natural systems.
Indeed. So you have raised a few important points, and going forward now, how important are these? Because, you know, there's enough being said. Something has to be done. People are saying things have to be done, but they're always asking somebody else to do it. The point is, we as individuals, you know, there's a whole of society approach here. There's a whole of the world approach. Every individual has to play their part. The younger generation will have a greater burden otherwise, you know, of living a life of great adversity moving forward. How do we do it? What do we do? I mean, is it just simply, you know, reuse, recycle, that kind of stuff? Is that what it is?
Well, that is one of the options. But if somebody asks me, I will say very categorically, adaptation, which is an immediate investment towards, you know, changing our way of using things. You know, it could be to come up with energy efficient solutions, adopting renewable energy kind of things in our day-to-day life. Another thing is a long-term investment, which is specifically called as mitigation strategies. So there are some of the investments in other sectors, like even in, you know, at home, government is talking about sustainable missions for urbanization, or diverting the Campa funds towards greening the planet, and even, you know, talking about Nagar ones, and the commitment which we have done, like, you know, having 174 gigawatts of renewable energy by 2022, which has actually gone to 450 gigawatts. And we get to see that though these are very ambitious kind of targets, but the trend which we are seeing in India, somewhere we are able to align to that. And another commitment which has come into into existence during Paris Agreement was having 2.5 to 3 million tons of carbon equivalent green cover. So Ministry of Environment and Forest, climate change, it is investing in these areas.
Absolutely.
And probably India can set a wonderful example, both at a central level as well as at local level. There are some transitions which are taking place.
Professor PK Joshi, thank you very much for your time and for your enlightening us on the subject. Moving on then to our next story. Well, the risk of many diseases increases during the rainy season, and we know that we are having some pretty bad rains in the monsoon. What precautions should be taken to protect children from diseases during the rainy seasons? Let's look at this report.
Monsoon poses many risks to the health of the children because it is the perfect season for breeding of mosquitoes and germs.
Monsoon is a time when we have a very high humidity in the environment, and we must remember, because of this high humidity there may be a lot of problems because of the food safety and chances of contamination, the high density of mosquitoes and fly in the environment, and the changes in the environment leading to circulation of different types of viruses and bacteria, and can lead to the waterborne diseases and food contaminated diseases such as acute gastroenteritis, cholera, and the other types of GI disorders where the child can have vomiting and they may not feel like having anything, a poor appetite and pain abdomen.
Proper management of disease in children is must. Do not ignore the warning signs and consult a doctor in case of severity.
During monsoon, we have to remember that first and foremost thing is we maintain our personal hygiene. Take care that if there is a rain or something, we try to maintain them inside the house. But if the child has been out and was in rain, then as soon as he comes inside, we should change the clothes, and we should also take care of his diet and nutrition so that he is protected. And if he is showing any sign of infection like cough or cold, then immediately we should take the child to the doctor and give supportive treatment. Then food also should be cooked in such an amount that it is consumed within that time only, and we should not try to keep it, otherwise this may get contaminated and give rise to diseases.
Taking precautions during the rainy season may help to prevent diseases in children and keep them healthy during the season. Kiran Bhardwaj, DD News.
Our next segment is our National Prime segment. The Bharatiya Janata Party has slammed the opposition, including the Congress Party and the Aam Aadmi Party. This is for playing politics over the COVID pandemic. Addressing a press conference in New Delhi, the spokesperson of the Bharatiya Janata Party reiterated the government's stand over death due to oxygen shortage during the second wave, stating that the onus was on the states to report such casualties. He said that Arvind Kejriwal submitted in court that no person had died due to shortage of oxygen. But outside, he wants to shy away from leveling such, and he starts continuing to level baseless allegations, is what he said.
ऑक्सीजन शॉर्टेज के कारण इनकी मृत्यु नहीं हुई है, ये अरविंद केजरीवाल जी की सरकार लिखित में अपनी कमेटी की रिपोर्ट को दिल्ली हाई कोर्ट को सबमिट करती है। अरविंद केजरीवाल जी, कल आप इस पे सवाल पूछ रहे थे, मनीष सिसोदिया जी पूछ रहे थे, आप बताइए क्या आपकी सरकार ने जो केंद्र को आंकड़े दिए हैं उसमें से एक भी मरीज की मृत्यु ऑक्सीजन शॉर्टेज के कारण हुआ है, ऐसा लिख के दिया है क्या? टीवी में कुछ और टीवी के बाहर कुछ, ये राजनीति रुकनी चाहिए।
And Sambit Patra also said that the Congress, even in the states ruled by the Congress, they have submitted that no deaths had taken place due to oxygen shortage, and Rahul Gandhi is now spreading falsehoods. He called for the former Congress president, in fact he called him a Twitter troll.
आपकी महाराष्ट्र की सरकार, आपकी छत्तीसगढ़ की सरकार जब ये खुद मान रही हैं कि यहां ऑक्सीजन की शॉर्टेज के कारण डेथ नहीं हुआ, आप ट्वीट करके पूरे देश में भ्रम फैला रहे हैं। और आज मैं मीडिया से भी कहूंगा कि ये लोग तो इट इज एक्सपेक्टेड कि ये लोग तो झूठ बोलेंगे, भ्रम फैलाएंगे, अफरा तफरी का माहौल, कंफ्यूजन का माहौल बनाने की चेष्टा देश में करेंगे। मगर हाथ जोड़ के चतुर्थ स्तंभ मीडिया से भी ये निवेदन है कि आप इन लोगों को एक्सपोज करिए, इनसे सवाल पूछिए आप राहुल गांधी से, सवाल पूछिए आप अरविंद केजरीवाल जी से कि आप अपने अपने हाईकोर्ट में तो कुछ कहते हैं मगर आके टीवी के सामने और ट्विटर में कुछ और कहते हैं। आप इस प्रकार के झूठ के साथ क्यों आगे बढ़ रहे हैं, ये सवाल मीडिया उनसे पूछे।
The BJP spokesperson also asserted that the Prime Minister called a meeting on COVID yesterday, and the Aam Aadmi Party and the Congress must clarify why they didn't attend that meeting, because they seem to be so concerned about the issue, but they don't attend the meetings.
प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने थर्ड वेव की प्रिपरेशन के लिए बुलाया। हम जानना चाहते हैं, देश जानना चाहता है कि कांग्रेस पार्टी और आम आदमी पार्टी उससे नदारद क्यों रही। Why was the Congress party and the Aam Aadmi Party absent from the meeting which was called regarding the preparation of third wave by the Honorable Prime Minister of India? आप मीटिंग में जाएंगे नहीं और बाद में आप लोग कहेंगे कि प्रधानमंत्री जी ने हमें बताया नहीं, प्रधानमंत्री जी ने हमें चेताया नहीं। आप राजनीति करते हैं। आम आदमी पार्टी ने कहा कि हम कोविड के बारे में सुनना नहीं चाहते हैं।
The new education policy will enable India to reap a demographic dividend. The inaugural session of the World's University Summit was organized by OP Jindal University today, and addressing the event, the Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu said that online education cannot be a substitute for the conventional classroom learning. He said that we need to develop a hybrid teaching model for the future by combining the best elements of both offline and online education. Let's listen to him.
Virtual education cannot be substitute for conventional classroom teaching and learning. Therefore, in the near future, we need to explore the possibility of a hybrid teaching model by combining the best practice of offline and online education to get the optimum learning outcomes, a model which the learner and the teacher would find both interactive and interesting. It should provide students with a knowledge base that prepares them to learn independently and creatively. Through proactive critical thinking, learners should be molded into leaders in their chosen fields so that eventually they evolve into drivers of social change.
The Union Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan also attended this event, where he said that the new education policy will facilitate the integration of education with skills and will enable India to reap the demographic dividend.
COVID-19 pandemic, we have ushered in an era of digital learning. The mode of pedagogy is going to stay, giving way to hybrid method of learning and knowledge dissemination. Our future planning, therefore, needs to fill a digital divide that currently prevails. With the advent of National Education Technology Forum, we will have the requisite technological boost to upgrade our pedagogy and learning outcomes. It will act as a force multiplier.
The External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, will co-chair the 11th Mekong-Ganga Cooperation Meeting. It's a ministerial meeting, and he'll do so with his Cambodian counterpart, the Minister for Foreign Affairs of Cambodia and International Cooperation, Park Songkhon. This will happen virtually. This meeting will be attended by other foreign ministers from the Mekong countries. These include Laos, Myanmar, Thailand and Vietnam. So the foreign ministers, they will review the progress made on the cooperation since the 10th meeting that took place in Bangkok. That happened in August of 2019, and they will chart out the future direction with the aim of strengthening and also expanding efforts against COVID-19. The ministers are also expected to exchange views on regional and international issues of common interest and concern. Delhi Police has put complete staff deployment in force 2 months ahead of the 15th of August. The additional DCP North Anita Roy said that security checks at markets near Chandni Chowk area and inside the Red Fort are being done. She said that to counter anti-drone challenge, the staff is being trained on how to respond to unfriendly objects. She also said that coordinated training with the Air Force, the NSG, DRDO. All that is in progress, and 360-degree anti-drone coverage is taking place.
से 15 अगस्त के 2 months पहले से हमने कंप्लीट कवरेज राउंड द क्लॉक स्टाफ डिप्लॉयमेंट रेड फोर्ट पे कर दिया है। इसके अलावा हमारे रेगुलर एएस चेक्स नियर बाय मार्केट एरियाज में इंटायर चांदनी चौक रोड पे इनसाइड रेड फोर्ट और सिक्योरिटी के साथ कंप्लीट कोऑर्डिनेशन के साथ इंटरनल चेकिंग चल रही है।
Jammu and Kashmir administration has announced they will be issuing a domicile certificate to spouse and husband of a native woman who is a domicile holder in the Union Territory. Earlier, the Jammu and Kashmir women, the women who were married outside the Union Territory made their spouses ineligible for domicile certificates. So, well, the Union Cabinet in 2020 had approved the Jammu and Kashmir adaptation of state laws, second order 2020, issued under Section 96 of the Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act 2019, and now the spouse of a domicile certificate holder can get the certificate upon submission of certain documents as a new clause, and has been added under the Jammu and Kashmir Grant of Domicile Certificate Procedure Rules 2020, and the power to grant the category of domicile to the spouse of domicile has been conferred with the Tehsildar. The spouse is eligible to get a certificate upon showing the domicile certificate of his or her spouse and a valid marriage proof. Madhya Pradesh, Gwalior and Orkha cities, they have been selected by UNESCO. This is under the Historic Urban Landscape Project, and this is started in 2011. And this is for inclusive, well-planned development of fast-growing historical cities, preserving culture and heritage. The Chief Minister there, Shivraj Singh Chauhan, virtually launched the UNESCO's Historic Urban Landscape Project for Gwalior and Orkha cities of the state through a video conference. And speaking on the occasion, he said, this project of UNESCO, it will help tourism in Madhya Pradesh, and it will get a new dimension. 6 cities of the South Asia, these include Ajmer and Varanasi in India, are already part of this project. So Orkha and Gwalior, they have been included in the 7th and 8th places. Also, they have been the 7th and 8th cities that have been included, and the development and management plan of these cities will be prepared by UNESCO. All aspects including history, culture, food, lifestyle, economic development, community development, all this is included. Eid-ul-Azha being celebrated across the country today. It's being celebrated with religious fervor and solemnity, and in most places, in fact, there is no congregation or in the Eidgahs and the grand mosques because of the pandemic. Several religious leaders and scholars have appealed to people to celebrate the festival with the guidelines in mind, especially because of the government guidelines.
The holy festival of Eid al-Azha is one of the 2 important Eid celebrations within Islam, which falls on the 10th day of the Arabic month Dhul Hijjah. It is an occasion of joy and peace, while millions across the world celebrate the festival with great fervor. The message of this festival is great as it honors the willingness to sacrifice everything to God. Eid al-Azha commemorates the story of the Muslim prophet Ibrahim's test of faith when he was commanded by God to sacrifice his son. It is known as Sunnat-e-Ibrahimi among Islam.
ईद उल अज़हा मुसलमानों का बड़ा त्यौहार है। इसमें तमाम मुसलमान अल्लाह ताला की इबादत करते हैं, अल्लाह ताला का शुक्र अदा करते हैं और परवरदिगार आलम से दुआएं करते हैं और तमाम लोगों से प्यार से मोहब्बत से मिलते हैं और गरीबों की बहुत ज़्यादा मदद करते हैं, क्योंकि अल्लाह ताला का हुक्म यह है कि सबसे मोहब्बत करो और गरीबों की मदद करो।
While the enthusiasm for festivals has subdued due to the COVID-19 pandemic since over a year, the excitement still remains high amongst people. However, people no longer greet each other with hugs on Eid, but they wish one another while ensuring the poor to be a part of the celebration and happiness as well.
ईद उल अज़हा, ईद कुर्बान, ये हज़रत इब्राहीम और हज़रत इस्माइल की कुर्बानी की याद में मनाई जाती है। हज़रत इब्राहीम ने अल्लाह के हुक्म से अपने जवान बेटे की कुर्बानी पेश की और उस कुर्बानी के दरमियान में अल्लाह को ये अदा पसंद आई। ये इम्तहान में देखा कि पूरे उतरे तो फ़ौरन ही अल्लाह ने उनकी जगह पर दुम्बा भेज दिया। इसीलिए ये कुर्बानी जो है क़यामत तक फ़र्ज़ की गई, लेकिन हमें ये सबक मिलता है कि आला मकसद के सामने अपनी महबूब तरीन चीज़ को भी पेश किया जाए।
Eid al-Azha is a unique festival in every way, symbolizing the spirit of giving. The message of Eid al-Azha is to guard the identity and at the same time struggle for righteous and honest values of life. It says God is pleased with the spirit of submission and obedience, while Eid al-Azha is not merely a ritual, but it is a great occasion to tender change and seek salvation. Bureau Report, DD India.
Well, the Union Minister of Minority Affairs, Mukhtar Abbas Naqvi, offered Eid al-Adha prayers at home, keeping in view the Corona protocol. He prayed for the health and safety of the people of India and the entire world humanity.
सभी देशवासियों को और पूरी दुनिया के लोगों को ईद उल अज़हा की, बकरीद की बहुत बहुत शुभकामनाएं, बहुत बहुत मुबारकबाद। और आपको मालूम है कि इस वक्त जो कोरोना पैंडमिक से पूरी दुनिया दो चार है, उससे वो चुनौतियां सामने हैं। इसलिए हिफाजत के साथ इबादत को पूरी दुनिया ने जो है वो तरजीह दी है। हमने भी घर पे ही नमाज अपने अदा की और दुआ की कि इस कोरोना पैंडमिक से हमारे देश के लोगों को, पूरी दुनिया के आलम इंसानियत को निजात मिले। एक कुर्बानी का त्यौहार है, एक संकल्प का त्यौहार है और साथ ही साथ जो गरीब हैं, जो कमज़ोर तबके हैं, उनको जो है वो मदद करने का है।
You're watching Midday Prime. Let's get your updates from the world of business now. Well, the Finance Ministry on Tuesday issued an order to implement the cabinet decision to hike the dearness allowance of central government employees to 28% from the 1st of July. Last week, the Union Cabinet had approved an 11% point hike in dearness allowance and dearness relief for central government employees and pensioners, with effect from the 1st of July, benefiting more than 48 lakh central government employees and 65 lakh pensioners. And with this, the new DA rate will be 28%. According to the Finance Ministry, the 28% DA hike order would not apply to the railway employees and the armed forces personnel. Separate orders for them will be issued by their respective ministries. So far, at the national level, about 92.8% of the ration cards have been seeded with Adhaar of the beneficiaries. 28 states and union territories have completed the Adhaar seeding of their respective ration cards. So further Adhaar seeding of ration cards is progressing slowly in 8 states, which includes some of the northeast, also West Bengal, Jharkhand, Ladakh, due to technical reasons. The Adhaar ration card linking timeline has been extended by the government till the 30th of September. The information was given by the Union Minister of State for Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution, Sadhvi Niranjan Jyoti. In view of difficulties reported by taxpayers in filing of their forms online on the income tax portal, the CBDT has granted a further relaxation in electronic file of forms 15CA and 15CB. So the taxpayers can now submit their forms 15CA and 15CB in manual format to the authorized dealers till the 15th of August, the CBDT said in a statement. Form 15CA helps the Income Tax Department to track foreign remittances and their tax liability, and according to the Income Tax Department, the form needs to be filled up if the remittance is chargeable to tax under the provision of the Income Tax Act 1961 and the remittance of the aggregate of such remittances, as the case may be, does not exceed 5 lakh rupees during the financial year. World news now. Let's get your news from across the globe. Well, Australia's two largest states reported increases in new COVID-19 cases, which was a blow to the hopes of their lockdown restrictions, which were lifted with more than half the country's population under stay-at-home orders. New South Wales, the state, the home to the country's most populous city, Sydney, logged 110 new cases, up from 78 the day before. Sydney is under nearly 4 weeks into a lockdown and is dealing with the outbreak of the Delta variant. So Victoria State clocked 22 new cases from 9 the day before, which is the biggest increase since the outbreak began this month as it nears its second week of statewide lockdown. Health leaders have said that their greatest concern is the number of people active in the community before receiving the coronavirus diagnosis, and that the number should be near zero before lifting of the lockdown. Well, a new COVID health pass has been made effective in France amid the surge of new cases there as well. From today, people need proof of vaccination, a negative test, or a recent recovery from COVID to enter most museums and cinemas. Later, lawmakers will debate whether to extend the use of such a scheme in August for entry to cafes as well as restaurants and shopping malls. It comes a day after the country's health minister announced 18,000 new infections in just 24 hours. South Korea reported a daily record of 1,784 coronavirus cases for Tuesday, breaking a mark set last week as the country grapples with the surge in Delta-driven outbreaks. A genetic analysis of 2,381 infections last week found that nearly 40% were the Delta variant. Further, over half of the total 1,741 Delta variant cases since December were diagnosed last week. Despite the record number of cases, South Korea has seen no significant increase in hospitalizations or deaths, with a mortality rate of 1.13% and the number of severe diseases at 214 as of Tuesday. Of the country's 52 million, 32% have received at least one dose of the coronavirus vaccine, and the government aims to vaccinate 70% by September. So let's get you some other non-COVID news now from across the world. Before we get you that, in fact, let's take an update from the coronavirus figures from across the world. So these are the figures, and that is 19 crore 23 lakh people worldwide have tested positive for COVID-19. The number of recoveries stands above 17 crore 49 lakhs. These are the official figures, of course, that are being portrayed. The deadly virus has still now claimed the lives of 41 lakh 34,000 lives globally. This is according to the Worldometer. And the US continues to remain the worst affected by the disease. As many as 3 crore 50 lakh people in that country have been infected by COVID-19 so far. The virus has claimed the lives of more than 6 lakh 25,000 people in the US. Sports news now, and let's get you some news from the world of sports. The Olympics is coming up. And Deepika is joining us with all the latest news. Over to you, Deepika.
Good afternoon, Mark. Thank you so much. Let's take a quick look at all sporting updates. So starting with cricket, Deepak Chahar's daring innings helped India beat Sri Lanka by 3 wickets in the second ODI. With this win, India took an unassailable 2-0 lead in the 3-match series. Chasing the target of 276 runs to win from Sri Lanka, the Indian team was at one point struggling after losing 7 wickets for 197 runs. However, Deepak Chahar and Bhuvneshwar Kumar shared an unbeaten 84 for the 8th wicket to snatch the victory from Sri Lanka. Deepak played the biggest role in the team's victory, scoring an unbeaten 69 off 82 balls with the help of 7 fours and a 6. Bhuvneshwar Kumar played an unbeaten 19 not out, and Suryakumar Yadav, playing the second ODI, scored 53 runs in 44 balls, while Manish Pandey scored 37 runs in 31 balls. Deepak Chahar was also awarded the man of the match for the first time in his ODI career. And in Olympics, the United Nations Postal Administration, that is the UNPA, has issued Sport for Peace stamps and souvenir sheets to mark the start of Summer Olympics Tokyo 2020. The UNPA stamps for the Tokyo 2020 Olympics originally were scheduled to be issued in 2020 but were postponed due to the pandemic. In a statement, the UNPA said, and I quote, "One of the objectives of this great international sporting event is to promote peace, respect, mutual understanding and goodwill, goals it shares with the United Nations," unquote. The Sport for Peace issue includes 21 stamps. 3 stamps are in separate souvenir sheets, 1 for each UN post office. The other 18 are in 6 panes of 8, 2 for each post office, and each pane includes 3 different segments. And the next story we have is of badminton. PV Sindhu remains a strongest contender at the Tokyo Olympics along with the entire badminton squad from India. And here is a report that brings you that with just 2 days ahead of Tokyo Olympics, a detailed badminton contingent report on the India flying at the Tokyo Olympics. PV Sindhu, women's singles. Sindhu arrives in Tokyo as the reigning world champion and 2016 Olympic silver medalist. In the absence of Rio game champion Carolina Marin of Spain, Sindhu should be one of the strongest favourites in Tokyo. However, her form since winning the 2009 world title has left much to be desired. She has not won a single title since then. Sai Praneeth, men's singles. Saved by this performance at the Swiss Open, Praneeth just about managed to qualify to Tokyo on the basis of his ranking. After all, he did not register a single victory in 6 matches across 4 tournaments in 2020. To now expect him to punch above his seeding of 13 to get to the semi-finals would be unfair. He should advance from the preliminary league stage but could then run into 8th seed Cologne in the elimination round. Should Praneeth make the quarterfinals, top seed Kento Momota could be waiting. Satvik Sairaj, Ranki Reddy and Chirag Shetty in men's doubles. The Indian pair, the first to break into the top 10 of the world rankings, made impressive strides in the last completed season. However, the one-year postponement of games affected Satvik and Chirag in different ways. They faced formidable opposition in the preliminary league stage, being placed in Group A with world number 1 Indonesian pair, with only 2 teams advancing to the quarterfinals. The Indians will have to win at least 2 matches. Ben Lane and Sean Wendy, the world number 18 pair, looks beatable, but Satvik and Chirag will have to defeat one of the 2 higher seeded duos in the group as well to advance. Sports Desk, DD India. And that's all for now in sports. Over to you, Mark.
Thanks very much, Deepika, and that concludes our Midday Prime for today. Thank you very much for being with us, but remember, we are still not out of the woods as far as COVID is concerned. So it's always good to mask up, and if you haven't yet got your jab, get the jab done. Thanks for being with us. Namaskar.